Everybody, it's Coach Rob. Welcome to another Coach's Log. Last couple of weeks, we've been talking about various types of working out, primarily around preparation for the off season. And today's a little bit different. It's still about the preparation for the off season. And one of the things that comes up frequently in pretty much every competitive athlete's life, and that is managing something that I like to refer to as the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Meaning, I get done with an event, a race, a training session, and I've discovered that something didn't go well. And it is occupying my head, and it won't leave me alone. I can't stop thinking about it. I'm like a dog with a chew toy. So, those types of things they can be positive, but this type of focus can become detrimental very, very quickly. And I learned a very long time ago that probably the best thing that I could do when I have something like this occupying my head, I can't get it out, and it just keeps going over and over, is to write it down. Now, if you can't be bothered to write race reports or even training comments, then this is definitely a tool you need to be thinking about, especially if you are going to become more goal oriented and that you're going to take those goals that you write and you're going to then apply training principles to them in an effort to improve your performance. Everything that I do on this channel is kind of in an orderly fashion. So if you take a look at the content that was most recently released, you'll see that we are trending in a particular direction with this information. And this is no different. So the seasonal summary is something that I have all of my athletes do. And it's something at the very least that they can look back on as they are preparing for setting goals for the new year. And I would say this doesn't have to be hard, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it's like a very simple one-page diary entry. Here's what I ask for, and I'm going to provide a link to a template so that you can download this whenever you feel like it's going to be helpful. I would suggest that you're probably looking in the next 4 to 6 weeks from the start of this video of completing it, or at the very least 4 to 6 weeks before you start your official off season. So what I like is I want to know your name, the year, the racing discipline or event discipline if you're not competitive, number of races and events completed in that year. If you had some did not starts, did not finishes, I still would like to see that as your coach. And then the number of events completed or the podiums. So for instance, how many podiums did you have? How many top fives, top 10, top 20 just finished? And how many DNFs did you have? Those are important. Once you get that kind of information on paper that you might find upsetting or at the very least troubling, then it starts to lose its edge over you. Now, the next thing is, this is so simple. We're going to be answering 5 questions that you need to ask yourself about the past season. And the examples that are in the template that are in red are just that. They're examples. They're not necessarily there to drive the direction that you need to take. They're just examples of an athlete's past season. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Number 1, what was the high point of your season? And what I like to tell the athletes that I coach when it comes to goal setting, whether it's outcome-based or performance-based, it doesn't have to be a world championship or a national or a state championship. It could have just been a club event that you just completed and that you're just very proud of yourself for some particular reason. And I also don't think that you need to have, a list of this, the length of your arm. I think that just one of those high points, the high point of that season, and you might be surprised what that is. I know that this season I had a very successful season. I'm very proud of the work that I managed to put in. I'm very proud of the work that my athletes have been putting in and their accomplishments this year, especially in the middle of a pandemic. But in all of that, I got to tell you, one of the highlights of this season was actually being able to get out and race and see my friends. That probably was the biggest highlight of the year. what was the greatest disappointment? So when we talk about the disappointments in our lives, we've got to give ourselves a break. Cut yourself some slack. Don't be so hard on yourself. Remember, we're documenting this so we can get it out of our head, so we're not turning it over and over and over. Get it on paper so we can put it to rest. All right, enough talking with my hands. When I look at the greatest disappointments over the years, I've had athletes talk about that missing opportunity. I think that is a common thread in disappointments. It wasn't always the more final kind of aspects of I didn't win. Instead, it was missed opportunity, or it was a bad guess, or it was maybe a bad tactic, or you get back to that woulda, coulda, shoulda. If I had done this, this probably could have happened better. That's where a lot of disappointments I have found in the seasonal summaries I've read over the years seem to come from. This particular year, when I take a look at, it's really hard for me to come up with a disappointment in my particular season, quite simply because I really do feel like I did everything possible to get the performances I had. And it's kind of hard to fault things when you've had a winning schedule. Instead, I would like to say that probably the biggest disappointment I had was not being able to participate in certain races that were canceled. And I think many of us have that, but if I were to look at it from a performance perspective, I think that it was, again, missed opportunity. I probably missed a few too many workouts during certain times of the year and overdid it other times of the year, and I have to find a better balance. Now, the next question number 3, do you think you trained as well as you could have? That's a tough one, because if you are self-coached, you've got a ton of questions about what that means. And it's really hard for me as a professional coach to tell you exactly what that looks like. You need to be able to have the mix of taking care of the basics of your discipline. You need to be able to understand what the weaknesses are that you present, and then how you can go about rectifying those, mitigating those weaknesses. And then let's not forget about your strengths. We can't just completely focus on the things that we think we're awful at. Instead, we also have to say, you know what, my strengths are the following. Well, guess what? If you take a look at that and you discover the events and the races that you've been participating in don't reflect those strengths, why are you doing them? Give yourself a bit of a break and think about that. Also, when we talk about training and self-coached athletes, there's this go hard or go home mentality. And I used to say that it is in the document, did you train hard enough? And I'm not a big fan of that. It's going to stay in the document. But I want you to understand that training intelligently has a lot more to do with doing things well than it does doing them as hard as you possibly can. Number 4, what is the one thing you most need to work on for next season? Now, I've already given you some ideas. Is it that missed opportunity, trying to judge or be a better judge of opportunities that were missed versus opportunities that benefited you? Or is it one of these things where there is some aspect of your training that you can obviously look at and say, well, this is weak. Maybe there's some power development that needs to go on. Maybe it's tactical. Maybe it's strategic. Maybe it's psychological. Maybe it's nutrition. Think about those foundational things that get athletes through the day. And then lastly, number 5, what is the one thing you would most like to accomplish in the upcoming season? That is critical. We will get to goals. I'm going to do an entire webinar on setting smarter goals in the new season. But what I want to understand from you in a seasonal summary, the athlete that I coach, is what is the one thing that just jumps out at you? I don't want you to think about it too hard. As a matter of fact, if we were sitting here on my back deck and we were having this conversation, I would probably say something along the lines of, don't think about it. First thing that comes to your mind, what's the one thing that you would want to accomplish next year? And I would have to say that probably the lion's share of the folks that I've coached over the years, they would probably tell me that they would want a podium or a win. in some particular event or race. And that's perfectly acceptable, especially this early in the game, because it will drive all the decisions and considerations that need to be made when you are working on your goals. I can't stress this enough. I've said this before. It's an old adage, and that is what is not measured cannot be improved. This is part of the process of improving your performance. So if I coach you and this, kind of struck a chord with you, great, because you will be getting a copy of the seasonal summary or maybe an updated version of it by the end of this week, I believe. And for those that are self-coached, I will have a link in the show notes at the bottom where you can download your own copy. If you have questions about your next season and you want it to make it the best season that you've ever had to date, give me a call. Go to our website, positiveperformancecoaching.com. Go to the Contact Us area under the About menu, and that's how you can get in touch with me. And then we will find a way to get you down the path that you want the most. All right, everybody. I hope that you're healthy. I hope that you're safe. And I hope the rest of your training this week goes exceptionally well. Have a great week.